picture this. You're sitting at your desk, closing your eyes and just vividly visualizing yourself completely crushing your next major project.
Right, the classic manifestation technique.
Exactly. You're picturing like the praise from your manager, that massive feeling of relief when the work is finally done, maybe even a clear path to a promotion. I mean, we've been told our entire lives that this kind of positive visualization is the key to achievement.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Vision boards, it's basically the foundation of modern self-improvement.
Right. But according to cognitive science, by doing this, you are actually sabotaging your success in real time.
Yeah, it's a massive blind spot in how we approach our goals.
Yeah.
Because by purely imagining the finish line, you're tricking your brain into believing the race is already over.
Wow.
Yeah, the neurological response is immediate. You get this dopamine hit, your blood pressure literally drops, and your motivational fuel just, it tanks. We have basically been taught the absolute wrong way to pursue what we want.
Which is wild. So today's deep dive is entirely about dismantling that trap. We're looking at Gabriel Oettingen's research from New York University and unpacking this rigorously tested method called WOOP.
WOOP, right?
Right. Our mission today is to figure out how to structure goals so they actually survive contact with reality, instead of just giving you like a fleeting 5-minute emotional high. We'll explore why traditional positive thinking fails, how to bypass your brain's resistance, and how to use this 4-minute tool to permanently shift your behavior.
That's such a great topic. And to really understand why this WOOP method is a total paradigm shift, we first have to look at the physiological effects of that traditional positive thinking you mentioned.
Right, because Oettingen ran several experiments on this exact phenomenon, didn't she?
She did. In one study, she tracked people trying to lose weight, and in another, it was university students trying to land jobs after graduation. And the results were completely counterintuitive.
Okay, let's unpack this because I read through those specific studies in our stack, and the physical measurements are what really caught my attention.
Yeah, it wasn't just self-reported motivation that dropped. The participants who engaged in the most positive fantasies about their success, like the ones who visualized the best, actually lost less weight and got fewer job offers than the ones who were more realistic.
And when they visualized that positive outcome, their systolic blood pressure actually demonstrably decreased.
Exactly. And that physical relaxation is the telltale sign of the sabotage. Your brain, it really struggles to distinguish between a vividly imagined future and current reality.
Wait, really? So it can't tell the difference?
Not on a neurochemical level, no.
Yeah.
When you sit there and indulge in this rich fantasy about acing a high-stakes meeting, your brain registers that as a completed task. It dispenses the reward prematurely.
So it's basically like eating a massive dessert right before dinner.
That is a perfect analogy, actually.
Yeah, like your body gets this rapid sugar spike, it feels completely satiated, and your appetite for the actual nutritious meal just vanishes. You get the emotional payoff without doing a single ounce of the actual work.
Exactly. So when the friction of reality inevitably hits, when you actually have to sit down, open a blank document, and do the tedious preparation, your energy is already gone.
Because your brain is like, hey, I thought we already won.
Right. You lack the necessary physiological arousal to push through the difficulty.
Man, which means we are accidentally tranquilizing our own ambition. If pure visualization is the dessert that ruins our appetite, we need a completely different way to build the menu.
And that is exactly where the WOOP acronym comes in. WISH, Outcome, Obstacle, Plan.
It's designed to give you that initial spark, but then immediately ground it in reality. So let's start with the W, which is wish.
Right. Step one.
But on the surface, the word wish sounds incredibly passive, like wishing on a star. Why use that terminology instead of just calling it a goal?
Well, because a traditional goal is often really rigid, or it's imposed externally by someone else. A wish taps into your intrinsic desire. But in the WOOP framework, a wish has very strict parameters.
Okay, what kind of parameters?
It has to be deeply meaningful to you, genuinely challenging, but realistically achievable within a specific time frame. We're talking days or weeks here, not a 10-year life plan.
The time boundary seems really critical because if I just say, I want to be a better writer or I want to be more productive at work, my brain doesn't really have anything to anchor to.
Vague wishes produce fuzzy plans. The human brain cannot rehearse a response for a concept as abstract as be productive. It needs boundaries to process action.
Right. So what does a good wish look like then?
Instead of do better at work,
Yeah.
a proper WOOP wish sounds like, I want to finalize the Q3 financial report by Thursday at 5:00 p.m.
Oh, I see. Very specific.
Notice the precision. It has a time boundary and a measurable marker of success. And like I mentioned, it has to be your wish. If you're doing it simply because your boss expects it, it won't generate that internal drive.
Right, which brings us to the first O, the outcome. Once we have the precise boundary of our wish, the sources suggest we do actually visualize the best possible result. We have to really feel it.
Yep.
But wait, didn't we just spend the last 5 minutes establishing that visualizing the outcome is exactly what tanks our motivation?
It's a vital distinction, I promise.
Yeah.
Emotion is the catalyst for action. You do need to close your eyes and picture the moment that specific wish comes true to generate an initial spark.
Okay, so you need a little bit of the dessert.
Just a bite. You need to ask yourself, what does the relief feel like when you finally hit send on that report? What does the quiet confidence feel like walking into that meeting?
Because a wish with zero emotion attached to it just isn't going to survive a tired Tuesday afternoon.
Precisely. You need that emotional charge.
I see the difference now. The danger isn't in feeling the emotion. The danger is dwelling in it. We have to feel the outcome to grab the fuel, but we absolutely cannot treat it as an extended fantasy session.
It's a brief rehearsal to start the engine. That is the razor's edge, separating WOOP from ordinary daydreaming. You capture that emotional spark, and then you immediately move forward. You don't allow the brain time to settle into a false sense of accomplishment.
Right, because a spark is completely useless if it doesn't ignite anything. We've built this emotional energy with the wish and the outcome. But to prevent it from burning out, we have to immediately crash it into reality.
Yes, the reality check.
Which is the second O. The obstacle. This step seems to be the missing link in almost every other goal-setting framework I've ever encountered.
It really is. It's the defining feature of Oettingen's research, a process she calls mental contrasting. After you imagine the desired outcome, you must ask yourself one highly specific, deeply uncomfortable question.
Which is?
What inside me is most likely to stop me from getting there?
Okay, let me pause on the phrase, what inside me? Because, when we fail at a goal, our first instinct is to look at the environment, right?
Cool ways.
If I'm trying to focus on a major project and my open plan office is incredibly noisy or I have a constantly demanding manager, aren't those the real barriers?
Well, what's fascinating here is that those external factors certainly exist, and they definitely cause friction. But you cannot WOOP your manager, and you cannot WOOP the office floor plan.
That's a good point. You can't control them.
Exactly. The actual barrier, the only part you can control and the part that ultimately dictates your failure or success, is your internal response to that external friction.
So the obstacle isn't the noise in the office. The obstacle is my internal urge to use the noise as an excuse to, check social media.
Yes, the real obstacle might be the anxiety that makes you avoid starting a complex task, or the fatigue that hits you at 3:00 p.m., or that internal voice whispering, I'll just doom scroll for 5 minutes.
Wow. So WOO requires you to honestly name your internal obstacles.
It requires you to confront your own specific mechanisms of self-sabotage.
I was reading through the section in our stack on Angela Duckworth's book, Grit, and this concept of mental contrasting seems to be the exact psychological engine behind grit.
It absolutely is. Grit isn't just blind optimism.
Right. It's not just raw persistence. It's the ability to navigate friction. By imagining the desired future and then instantly slamming it into your present-day internal flaws, you are essentially manufacturing that friction up front.
And the scientific term for that is productive tension. When you hold the bright, desired future and the messy, flawed internal obstacle in your mind back to back, your brain registers a profound dissonance.
It wakes up.
Exactly. It recognizes that the goal is not a daydream, but a real-world task requiring genuine effort. That tension is what generates the actual physiological energy needed to act.
The brain finally mobilizes its resources because it realizes work is actually required.
Yes, the dopamine is delayed until the work is done.
Okay, so we've generated this productive tension. We know exactly what we want. We have the emotional spark, and we've taken a really hard look in the mirror to identify our specific internal resistance. Now we have to actually do something about it.
The final step.
Right, the P, the plan. And this utilizes what psychologists call implementation intentions. Here's where it gets really interesting.
The plan is where all of this psychological insight gets translated into automatic behavior. An implementation intention is basically an if-then equation. The formula is brilliantly simple. If this obstacle happens, then I will take this specific action.
When I was reviewing James Clear's Atomic Habits for this deep dive, this if-then structure really stood out as the tactical core of his whole philosophy on habit loops. We are essentially preloading our decisions, right?
Yeah.
To bypass the parts of our brain that get tired.
That is the exact neurological mechanism. Willpower and decision-making, they're governed by the prefrontal cortex. Those are finite resources. Every decision you make drains that battery.
Decision fatigue.
Exactly. By the time you face your internal obstacle late in the afternoon, your prefrontal cortex is totally depleted. If you have to rely on willpower in that moment, you will lose.
It makes me think of pre-programming a GPS route before a long road trip.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, like you're making all the navigational decisions before you ever pull out of the driveway. So when you hit unexpected traffic or you get lost in distraction, you don't have to frantically look at a map while driving. You just follow the prompt. The route is already set.
That's a perfect way to put it. By establishing an if-then plan, you are offloading the decision from the easily exhausted prefrontal cortex to the brain's automatic processing centers. You pair a specific trigger with a small, concrete response.
Give me an example of that in action.
Sure. So, say your internal obstacle is feeling completely overwhelmed by the scope of a presentation you have to build. Your plan shouldn't be, if I feel overwhelmed, I will suddenly become a disciplined machine and finish it.
Right, because that still requires massive willpower.
Exactly. The action has to be incredibly small, almost entirely frictionless.
So what would the plan be instead?
It would be. If I feel overwhelmed by the presentation, then I will open a blank document and write just the title slide. Or, regarding distraction, if I feel the urge to doom scroll when I hit a difficult problem, then I will physically put my phone in a drawer and set a timer for 20 minutes.
Notice how we are taking the very specific internal obstacles we identified in the previous step and giving ourselves a tailored countermove.
You aren't fighting a generalized battle against distraction.
Right, you are fighting your specific tendency to doom scroll when stressed.
The specificity is what makes it work.
Right.
Over time, these small if-then bridges become genuine neurological habits. The trigger of feeling overwhelmed automatically initiates the action of opening the document, entirely bypassing the need for conscious effort.
You're literally rewiring your behavioral response to stress.
You are.
Okay, this all sounds incredibly effective for a single task, but how does a listener take this tool and make it a permanent part of their toolkit? How do we ensure this doesn't become just another abandoned October resolution?
The research lays out a few very practical rules for making WOOP a sustainable practice. First, keep it short. The entire 4-step exercise should take no more than 3 to 5 minutes.
5 minutes, wow. Okay.
Second, as we discussed, use it for near-term goals so you get an immediate feedback loop.
And the physical act of writing it down is crucial, right? I remember the data showing a massive difference in follow-through between people who just thought through the steps versus those who wrote them out.
Absolutely. Doing the exercise purely in your head is far less effective because it relies on working memory, which is easily disrupted. Writing down the wish, outcome, obstacle, and fist. Plan on a phone note or an index card physically encodes the intention differently in your brain.
That makes total sense.
And finally, the real power emerges through repetition. Making it a weekly practice, like sitting down every Sunday evening for 5 minutes to run a WOOP for the week ahead, it allows you to constantly address new obstacles as your environment changes.
And it's not just a study trick or a work hack either. WOP applies to social goals, health habits, sleep routines, emotional regulation. You can use it for anything.
Anything that requires behavior change. It perfectly bridges the science of motivation from Odingen's work with the environmental design of James Clear's habits and the long-term perseverance of Duckworth's grit.
It is such an elegant, logical flow. You start with a wish that sets the boundary. You visualize the outcome to gather the emotional fuel. You identify the internal obstacle to generate productive tension. And then you build an if-then plan to bypass decision fatigue. It takes 4 minutes, but it respects both human ambition and human nature.
Which brings up a final, very profound idea for you to mull over.
Oh, I'm ready.
We usually think of goal setting as a way to change who we are, right?
Mm-hmm.
We want to become this different, disciplined, flawless person. But if the core of the WOP method requires you to honestly name your internal obstacles, your specific anxieties, your unique avoidance tactics, your exact triggers, then perhaps WOP isn't just a productivity tool.
What is it then?
Perhaps it's actually a profound practice in self-knowledge. By repeatedly asking, what inside me is in the way? Quote, your perceived flaws and your past failures are no longer things to be ashamed of. They literally become the essential raw material you use to build your map forward.
What a reframing. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. The next time you sit down with a fresh notebook, don't just write down a hopeful resolution. Take 4 minutes, identify what is really in your way, and build a goal that will actually survive contact with reality. Catch you next time.